My name is Tim Carter, and this is Answers in Koine. This video will address the topic, that is, Brother Johnson and I will address the topic of free will or bound will and address it. How would language students, how would practitioners of hermeneutics, how would those who craft a rationale from the scriptures, and how would those who adhere to lexical syntactical analysis, which involves inflectional morphemes, the emphasis of kinds of action, how would we respond, first of all, as those, I'd like to say we have a trained ear for fallible constructs.
Yeah.
It's the better we know the scriptures, right?
Right.
The more obvious the things that are said off script become. So tell us about causal agency of man in the Old Testament.
Well, we see a great example of the causal agency of man in the Old Testament in the example of Abraham in Genesis chapter 15. Abraham believed God, and God counted it unto him for righteousness. Now, when you go into that statement, believed, in the Hebrew text, what you find is that is a causative. It's in the Hiphilstein.
Exactly.
It's a causative. So Abraham caused to believe is the way that it would be most simply translated and understood.
Exactly.
And so then the question we ask ourselves is, well, whom did Abraham cause to believe?
Exactly.
And the only conclusion we can come to is Abraham caused himself to believe.
Well, yeah, it's actually stronger than just reflexive. Abraham caused Abraham to
That's
believe.
right.
I mean,
Abraham
if you really
caused
want to know
Abraham.
how awkward that sounds,
Yeah.
It's like you caused you, or you caused
But it's
you
like
not to.
It's like a transaction that's taking place within his own mind.
Exactly right.
And it really emphasizes how that mankind causes himself to do what it is that he's going to do.
Which is troublesome to libertarian advocates and compatible advocates.
Exactly.
Causation isn't really subjective, and libertarian, which seems to be championed by so many, says you could have done otherwise. Now, I don't know in what world you live where everything could have been another way,
right,
or should have been another way, but we wouldn't say should have unless you could have. And in compatibilism, which is ever growing, that was popularized by David Hume, an atheistic author, which certainly isn't to impugn the thought. It's just that we're so far removed, and then the biblical Hebrew just simply says a causal active and causal passive stem.
Right.
And yet, when we teach that, as you said before, you go to John 20:31, where you have a deliberative subjunctive.
Right.
In order that you might deliberately believe. Well, now we know man's causal, so deliberately cause yourself to believe, simplest form of action. It really does away with bound will and free will as far as the implication, because I've had people defend free will. First, they didn't define the term, but I told them it's not causal. And people have advocated bound will, and we don't find anywhere in the Bible where it's prohibitive.
Correct.
So those are categories formed that are then defined off page.
Would you not agree that when it comes right down to it, when you consider these fallible categories that the men have done, isn't it all about removing accountability off of one's own shoulders? And when we look at the causal aspect of what the Bible teaches, it places the accountability square upon us. What are we going to do with the gospel?
Exactly. And that makes the determinant, did you deliberately cause yourself to believe the gospel? Did you believe into Jesus Christ?
Correct.
Not some abstract concept. Grace as a metaphysical, we can't, whether do we resist or not resist. The question is, did you believe or not, or did you disbelieve? And it caused both.
That's right. That's right. One is a causal agent of both of those concepts.
And as pastors, it's very liberating to be able to preach.
Yeah.
Because I notice if I preach the grace of God, the glory of God, the mercy of God, the love of God, the joy of God, the peace that comes from God, the patient endurance of God, the gentleness of God, the meekness of God, the temperance of God, the faith, the love, and the hope that we get, receive, and enjoy as children of God, people then start wondering, where are you at now? Don't we have free will? And then I come over and I preach, you cause you, and you wouldn't cause yourself to believe, or they cause themselves to harden their neck. Then people start wanting to put you in the other camp.
Right.
And yet no text is there to support anything that's less than the text, which would be a fallible
Correct.
construct.
Correct.
And introducing formed categories like free will without a definition, be like you as a pastor of a New Testament church. How long would you pastor if you didn't define baptize as immerse?
Not long in a missionary Baptist church,
Or
that's
if
for
you
certain.
were to try to say church is some abstract concept, universal visible or universal is visible, rather than an assembly, locative case, by the way, being somewhere fully in a particular place. So it's strange how large. I read Sam Harris's book Free Will.
Right.
And you know what the famous neuroscientist did? Deliberately caused himself to not define the term. And in it, he even said, even in the book, he wrote about he doesn't know what causes him to do or not do something, but he would never acknowledge himself as causal, and yet that's the very thing the Bible says.
Once again, trying to remove accountability from his own shoulders.
Exactly.
How sad.
So, and then to know someone with that advanced knowledge and presents himself as such a scholastic, and even he didn't define the term that was the title of his own book.
Wow.
So, all right, that's good job, Brother Johnson. Enjoyed it. That's it's just another thing that we're quite accustomed to. Baptists are known for defining our terms from the Bible.
Exactly.
It's strange that we want to have conversations about two things: a freed will or a bound will, and yet neither are established.
Neither of those things are
they're not called
found in the Scriptures.
Yeah. Have a blessed day.